Prioritize health now. Don't wait. But then no, your mental game is vital. It is a very big deal. And so for me, I had a few things that really made my life better during and after treatment. Number one is perspective. Perspective is from day one that I was born, I've been a perspective girl. And I used to say, it's not cancer. So if I got in a car accident, it's not cancer. If I spilled wine on the carpet, it's not cancer.
Welcome to the Radical Health Rebel podcast. I'm your host, Lee Brandon. This work started for me several decades ago when I started to see the impact I could make on people, helping them to identify the root cause of their health problems that no doctor could figure out, including serious back, knee, shoulder and neck injuries, acne and eczema issues, severe gut health problems, even helping couples get pregnant after several IVF treatments had failed. And it really moves me to be able to help people in this way. And that is why I do what I do and why we have this show. In this week's episode of the Radical Health Rebel podcast, I share the amazing inspirational story of fitness expert Fitz Koehler. Fitz shares a story of how she overcame breast cancer, including the story of how she successfully got through 15 months of torturous treatment with the aid of exercise, nutrition, a positive mindset, a great outlook on life, and seeking joy. We also had an interesting debate over red meat and whether the science supports the claim that red meat consumption causes cancer. Suffice to say, we respectfully agreed to disagree like adults on that subject, and after the interview, Fitz kindly sent me a link to the science that suggests that red meat increases the risk of colon cancer by 28%. I have also included the link in the show notes, and I've also included a link to a critique by Dr. Paul Saladino on the research that makes those claims. I would never suggest that you believe anything that I or my guests say, but would always encourage you to do your own research and come to your own conclusions. The links provided are a good place to begin your research into that subject, should you wish to do so. I really hope you enjoy this episode and take inspiration from it. Fitz Koehler, welcome to the Radical Health Rebel podcast. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Lee. Very excited. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while.
Yes, we have been waiting a while, haven't we? But we're here now and we're ready, raring to go. So Fitz, to kick things off, could you share with the audience your history, your professional background, and the story of your biggest health challenge to date?
Yeah. So that's a lot to unpack, but I've been teaching fitness since I was 14. Started at a women's fitness center, fell in love and kept going. I have a master's degree from the University of Florida in exercise and sports sciences. And since then, I've been teaching fitness around the globe, helping people live better and longer by making fitness understandable, attainable, and fun. I traditionally do that via TV, radio, books, podcasts, and I have a large online presence. I'm a very busy keynote speaker, so I travel all over the world talking, blah, blah, blah. I was just in Birmingham, England last year doing so. And I'm also a professional race announcer. So I host massive running events like the Los Angeles Marathon, Big Sur Marathon, Buffalo Marathon, and I'm an author of 4 books.
Awesome. So you've been busy.
I like to stay busy. I love what I do, and I'm so passionate about it. So yeah, I'm constantly working on something, and that fuels me to do more.
So you got into the field of exercise. What made you get into that?
I blew out my knee playing soccer or football. Football, as you would say.
That's the proper term.
That's right. I was a football player and I got tackled and I had an MCL tear and I ended up with surgery at 14 and a big rehabilitation period. I went to physical therapy or physio for a long time and I kind of liked that. I thought, you know what? I could be a physio. I liked the gym atmosphere. I liked the helping people part. And then after my surgery, my physio started messing with my incision. And I thought, well, that's disgusting. I learned I was very squeamish and I would not want to touch anyone else's incision ever. But when I finished physio, that guy said, go to the gym and keep strength training or you're going to re-injure your knee. And so I did. My mom lied. She said I was 15 to get me signed up for this gym. And I just started exercising there and I fell in love with it. I was working out with machines. I started taking classes. I thought the instructors were super cool. And then I thought, you know what? I could do this as a profession. And I started teaching classes at 15 and continued that for a long time. I started working in television, teaching fitness on TV when I was about 20, traveled the world, made some presentations in Norway and Russia and Sweden and all over the place. And my career just kept expanding, which is why I went and got the master's degree, because I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I need to do this for real. I need to be able to get an education that not only allows me to help people, but to make sure I never hurt anybody. And I take the spinal column very seriously. I'm very passionate about our heart and our lungs and our joints. And I know that, you know, a inadequate fitness professional can really do damage to someone. So yeah, I got the education, and I've been doing what I love on a massive scale for a very long time, and I plan to continue.
So what age were you when you started university? 18?
Yes.
And you did 4 years at university?
Well, I went for 4 years for my undergraduate degree. Are you familiar with the University of Florida? Go Gators. Yeah, go Gators. And then
the Gators, right? Yeah.
Okay. And then I stayed at the same university to get my master's degree. I think that was another 2 years. Well worth every minute of it.
Okay. But I guess you were probably still able to teach classes and things when you were at university as well.
I did. I hosted a TV show while at university. I took summers and I traveled abroad teaching fitness. I did all sorts of things. And I taught on campus. I taught at their fitness center, which was a lot of fun to be able to, I think we'd squeeze 60 or so rowdy college students in my classrooms. And I was able to play vulgar rap music because nobody cared. And it was very funny. We would get so sweaty. We would steam up the room that the windows would fog up. It was great.
Okay. So you did 6 years at university. So now you're around 24 years old. What kind of happened when you left university?
Yeah, so I had already been building my career throughout college. And I had, before I graduated, I had already a TV show and I'd worked on TV news and I had traveled and so forth. So it just continued to evolve. I learned, once I started working in television, I learned two things. Number one, that my skills were transferable. It wasn't just about teaching to a live audience. I could also teach to a camera effectively. And not everybody can make that transition. But fortunately for me, I could. And then I started experiencing the wonderful things that come along with a TV presence, where strangers would approach and say, I love you. I work out with you all the time. I've lost 17 pounds, or my back no longer hurts. And I was struck by the ability to help people I didn't know. Like, I just thought that was so cool that people are sitting at home working out with me and I'm making the experience fun and doable for them, and they're having success. And so it was during that first TV show where I fell in love with mass media. And that's really where I turned my attention. I haven't taught fitness in a gym since I was 22, I think. Everything since that point has been mass scale. And I knew speaking was something I definitely wanted to do, but I started small. I started speaking for free to small groups around town and honing that skill. I do think if you're going to stand on a stage, you better put in the time and effort to make sure you're darn good. If you're going to command an audience, you better be ready to do it, right? You don't want to stand on stage and go and ah and like, and you have to have a clear message that's enjoyable and entertaining and compelling. So I did a lot of practice at a small level, and eventually corporations started hiring me to bring my message to their audiences, whether it was the consumers or their employees. And it was no longer free. It's very unfree right now, Lee, and I'm very happy about that. I no longer speak for free, but I still enjoy it equally or more.
And what were the TV channels you were working on?
A variety. It was a show that was picked up and distributed from a variety of locations. My first show was Cardio Jam, and boy, was I wearing some ugly fitness attire, Lee. That's one of the most horrible things. Is I had some very, very ugly fitness clothes, but the show was good. I'm still proud of it.
Awesome. So Can you tell us a little bit about your biggest health challenge to date?
Yeah. So at the end of 2018, I was living my absolute best life, healthy athlete, not kickboxing anymore. Oh, that was my sport. I competed as a full contact kickboxer for 10 years, but I was running races. I transitioned from fighting to running half marathons and on occasion one full marathon. But late 2018, I was at a race weekend. I got out of the shower and I naked rubbed my underboob and I found a lump. And it was 7 weeks after a crystal clear mammogram. There was nothing there at the end of December 2018. And then in February 2019, there was definitely something there. So I immediately called the doctor, made the appointments, went to the gyno, and then went to have a mammogram and an ultrasound and the punch biopsies. And probably about 10 days after I first found that lump, a surgeon called and said, Fitz, I am so sorry, but that tumor is breast cancer. It's already spread to several lymph nodes. It is running through you like wildfire, and we need to treat you immediately and aggressively. And they did. And I was set up for 15 months of chemo, 15 very long months of chemo, which really wreaked havoc on me. And I had 33 rounds of radiation. I had surgery, and I'm very grateful to be about 3 years out. I'm cancer-free.
Yeah, that's definitely good to hear. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned it was after... How long after the...
7 weeks after a crystal clear mammogram, 7.
So it's quite interesting, isn't it, that, and again, I don't know if it's something you've looked into, but, mammograms often don't pick up tumours until they're quite well developed. And then also the fact that it, crushes the tissue, but also has got very high electromagnetic radiation, has also been suggested can cause breast cancer as well.
So it's interesting. I actually just spoke with a couple of radiologists about that because I thought, have I done this by getting so many mammograms? And they said, no, the actual radiation is quite low. It's lower than whatever you get going through the scanner at the airport, which I thought was interesting.
That's very high.
Well, but this is lower than that. So it's not a brutal amount, but yeah. One of them explained, because they said, how did I go from nothing to something? And many radiologists have looked at my scans and they said there was nothing there. They said, listen, there is no rule that says you leave a mammogram and the second you get into the parking lot, a cell goes rogue. And mine was just progressing at such a fast pace. I had a vicious little booger inside of me. And, in 7 weeks, it wreaked havoc. Really what the message here is, get those annual exams on cue. Get them every year, no matter what. However, you also have to be proactive. It's your stuff, your hands. You should be able to squeeze your stuff at leisure all the time. And you should. I'd say put a memo in your cell phone. So once a week, you cop a feel. You have a look-see. And if you find something, you see something, say something. So you have to have a variety of stopgaps for your health. It's the doctor, yes. It's the scan, yes. But then it's yourself. You are your greatest advocate and you're with your body every day. And so when something goes weird, it's your responsibility to address it, right? Whether you change whatever you're doing that's causing harm or you go visit a medical professional. But yeah, if I had not found that lump myself, I'd be dead. There's absolutely no way I could have gotten to that follow-up mammogram that December of 2019. I would have known I had cancer before then because it would have taken over my lungs and my brain. Those are the first two places it goes when you have breast cancer. And I would have either started, losing my mind or losing my memory or coughing a whole bunch. So I'm very fortunate that I did found it when I did.
Yeah. I don't know if you've looked into thermograms, but, from what I've done with my own studies, that thermograms, first of all, they're much lower in electromagnetic radiation. They pick up tumours much, much earlier. And also they don't crush the tissue as well, which obviously crushing the tissue can damage the tissue and help it to spread. So I know a lot of...
I'm so sorry. Is thermogram the same as ultrasound?
No, it's different from ultrasound.
Okay.
So thermogram is literally picking up temperature in the tissues.
Okay.
So that's something that a lot of let's call them alternative practitioners highly recommend over mammograms for those reasons. Obviously, you do get kickback or pushback, I should say, from people in the medical establishment because that's how they make their money. So, it's quite interesting. It's quite an interesting thing. And I'd suggest you look into it, actually, because it's certainly from the research I've done, it makes a lot more sense to use thermograms than it does to use mammograms.
Yeah, I will check it out for sure. I'm always up for some new information, some new fabulous tool, even if it's just new to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've had a guest on my podcast a couple of times now, and he only works with people with cancer. That's all he does, pretty much. Well, I'm pretty sure that's pretty much all he does. And his work is mainly based around, he would suggest that the initial cause of any cancer is stress. And it's nearly always mental emotional stress that causes it. Now, obviously, we know there's a lot of physical things that can also contribute to cancer. Might be things like heavy metals, again, electromagnetic radiation, certain foods, like sugary foods, for instance. But I had a discussion with him once. It wasn't actually on the podcast. It was after the podcast. And because what he's saying is that depending on where the cancer is in the body, you can normally tell what kind of mental or emotional trigger, if you like, actually caused the cancer. And when I asked him about what does he think the potential causes of breast cancer, one of them was grief. And again, that makes complete sense to me because from a traditional Chinese medicine point of view, the area of the heart, which is the fourth chakra, as well as being love, also is grief. So the lungs, for instance, tend to hold on to grief. But he also said, and this was quite interesting, that he sees a lot of women with breast cancer who give themselves away a lot and don't ever kind of put themselves first, if you like. So quite often you might see mothers, and what do? As soon as they've got children, they come last, right? Because their children comes first. And they fill their day with doing loads of stuff for everyone else. And there's never any time for themselves. It's like they don't have boundaries. So he was saying that's what he tends to see a lot with people with breast cancer, which I find really fascinating.
Yeah, so I mean, none of that resonates at all, even a little with me. I mean, I'm the happiest girl in the world who takes a ton of time for myself. And I know some very young women who are living their best life, happy as a clam, no grief involved, that have been diagnosed. I look at those real hard studies that show alcohol is a class 1 carcinogen, as is red meat and processed meats and cigarettes and sun exposure. And of course, there's some environmental things. But yeah, I'm a very hard evidence type of girl. So none of that resonates with me. But I don't know. I don't have any proof that he's totally wrong. But it definitely doesn't sound like anything that is relevant to my case for sure.
Yeah, it may not be. I mean, quite often as well, sometimes these things can be subconscious as well. So even though someone might say, well, that's definitely not me. And then actually when you dig deeper, someone will go, oh, actually, yeah. So, and grief doesn't have to be, for instance, doesn't have to be the loss of a person or the loss of a life. Grief can be, the loss of anything. It can be the loss of your favorite pencil, right? You can suffer grief. If that pencil meant a lot to you, you could suffer grief from loss of a thing,
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. It doesn't resonate at all with me. But I'm also not the czar of all things cancer. It just, like I said, it doesn't resonate with me.
So you went through, how long did you say? 15 months?
So yeah, 15 months of chemotherapy was brutalizing. Every iota of my body was affected. Not only did I lose my hair and my head, but my lashes and so forth. My main issue with chemo is it destroyed my digestive system. I felt like everything from my mouth on out had been put through a cheese grater. It was atrocious living like that. I mean, imagine living with a tequila hangover every day for a year and a half, or a stomach bug or food poisoning. That's what I lived with. That was the hardest part for me. But then my fingernails ripped off, my eyes changed colors. There was weird things going on with my muscles. So
Wow.
chemo was the worst part of it for me. But I'm back to 100% for the most part, or almost. I'm dinged up, but I'm about 98% of who I should be. I feel fantastic now.
Awesome. So what age were you?
I think I was 42.
So you went through a year and a half of feeling awful.
Yeah.
What did you do when you came out of the chemo? Was there anything you kind of did in particular that was different from before?
Well, no, I mean, I would say my healthy habits going into chemo were really the lifesaver for me. I mean, there's endless amount of evidence that proves exercise and nutrition can be weaponized to help cancer patients get closer to remission and less likely to have a recurrence. And so it wasn't as obvious to me how beneficial my exercise and nutrition was until I had a really difficult moment with my doctor. So I continued exercising as much as I could throughout treatment. And some days were better than others. Some days were really god awful bad, where maybe I did nothing, or I did stretching in the shower, or I was stuck in bed and I would do leg lifts and stretches and so forth in the bed. And those are the things I promote in my books. But I had gotten to my 6th round of the very mean chemo. So my first 6 rounds were the worst chemo they give to anybody is what I've been told. And then the next 15 were still mean, but less mean. And so I was going in for mean chemo number 6. And, chemo number 1 is nerve wracking because you don't know what to expect, right? There's a whole bunch of possibilities and you're just not sure how it's going to go. Well, once you've experienced chemo number 1, you know that number 2 is going to be equal or worse, 3 equal or worse. It's cumulative. The effects just keep piling up. And so when I went into mean chemo number 6, I was a bit nervous. I was, again, bald and gray, and everything, my fingernails were ripping off. Everything was going wrong. So I was kind of nervous, and I sit down in the exam room with my oncologist, which was the rule. He would see me, and then they'd do some blood tests. And then if I was good to go, they would let me have treatment. And he said, "Fitz, I am so proud of you. You are doing so great." And I said, "What? I am not doing great. Every ounce of my body has been destroyed. I am not doing great." He goes, "No, you've been doing so well. I'm so proud." And I said, "Dr. Gordon, I don't know why you're saying that. I'm a catastrophe." He said, "Fitz, I'm not suggesting you haven't suffered greatly. I know you have." He said, "However, if you were not so healthy and fit coming into this nonsense, you likely would have spent more than just that one night in the hospital." And I did have one night. He said, "You likely would have been in the hospital for a month. I'm giving you the meanest chemo that I give anybody, and you haven't been hospitalized for a month. You haven't had a feeding tube. You haven't had all of these things many of my patients have because they haven't taken care of their bodies. Instead, you have been traveling around the country, race announcing and speaking to thousands of people. So I'm not saying you haven't suffered, but because of your stature with health and fitness, you have done incredibly well. It's been incredibly impressive." And that's where that light bulb moment went off. And I thought, oh, dummy, you've been spending your whole life knowing that this health and fitness thing is so beneficial for all of these reasons. And when it matters most to you, you weren't able to understand its impact. And once he said that, I went, oh, I get it. So I did. I continued just doing whatever I could when I could throughout treatment. Once I got done with the mean chemo and surgery, I was able to start making progress. Up until that point, it was all loss, losing weight, losing strength, and so forth. And then I would take baby steps. It was very, very slight at first. I didn't compare myself to who I used to be. I just decided, okay, I'm the fitness expert who can do a little more than walk in the pool. And that's okay, because I'm compassionate. I've been through a lot. I'm going through a lot. So today I'm just going to walk back and forth in the pool, and that's going to be it for me. And then, I was swinging around the light dumbbells. I was a heavy lifter pre-cancer, and then it knocked down a lot of my strength. I had to lift the baby weights and get back up, build back up. So it was a very gradual progress. And progression. And I'm so glad that I'm a fitness expert, because when I was at the point where my mom said, you need to eat, you look like you're in the Holocaust. And I said, I know, like I was that skeletal, bald little weakling. I knew how to rebuild my body. I knew how to go from point A to, greatness, to the Boston Marathon, which I ran a little over a year and a half later. But all the people who don't know, and that's why I wrote the books. That's why I wrote Your Healthy Cancer Comeback and the Healthy Cancer Comeback Journal and my Noisy Cancer Comeback, is because I thought, well, I've made some really good decisions that have really benefited me. And thank goodness I do what I do. And I was able to manage this, but not everybody is. And there's so many people that are they are knocked down by cancer and its treatment. They are stomped on. They don't know how to get up. They certainly don't know how to exercise again. So I'm thrilled to be able to help that population do better and be better.
Mm. And did you have someone to support you through the process?
Well, not necessarily with exercise and so forth. I had my husband and my children and family members who pitched in. There were days that if someone didn't bring me a drink, I wouldn't have had a drink. I mean, I was incapacitated on occasion, but I was surrounded by love and support. But the things that needed to be done to get me healthy again, only I could do them. There was nobody who could exercise for me. There was nobody who could choose the healthy food. And, when I was trying to put weight back on, because I had lost a lot of weight, it was bad. I would have some McDonald's French fries. I would go and say, okay, I'm going to have that. But then everything else was apples and strawberries. And, I'm a vegetarian. So a lot of high quality nutrition, and then occasion just a wrecking ball of big calories to try and help me regain some. But yeah, I didn't really have any help with the exercise and nutrition part. That was all me.
Yeah, sorry, I meant more through the chemo process is what I was really asking about.
Yeah, I did. I mean, my husband drove me to every appointment, and you shouldn't have to go through those things alone. I feel for people who do. He would drive me to and fro. My chemo days were long. Quite often I'd be in the chair for 9 hours. So he'd bring me lunch, or friends would come and visit. And yeah. And then I'm a helper, not a helpee. I think a lot of us identify as that person. Like, I'm the person who comes to the rescue. I don't like to be rescued. But my kids were 13 and 15. They didn't drive, and they needed rides to school. Sometime I was too sick, or I was impeded by the drugs that they had given me. Chemo kind of makes you loopy. So I had to rely on other people to drive my kids to and fro. And sometimes they brought meals. I wasn't up to cooking, as you can imagine. So yeah, there definitely was some help, and I'm so grateful for it. And honestly, I had to just come to grips with the fact that I was going to have to accept help. And then I'm now committed to paying it forward for the rest of my life. So anyone who needs help, I'm the first one. I say, I'll do it. I do it. I'm just trying to make it even, and then go above and beyond, tilt that scale.
So you said you ran a marathon 18 months. Was it from the end of the chemo?
Yeah. So I finished chemo in May of 20, and then less than 18 months. It was October of 21. I ran the Boston Marathon.
Wow. And at what point did you make that decision to run Boston?
Yeah. So it was when I was invited in June. I think it was May or June of 2020. And I had been exercising again. In fact, I finished chemo, I think it was May 10th of 2020. I ran a Spartan race a month later. Now, I had to walk it, and I failed at a lot of the obstacles, but that was okay. I still went and did it. A week later, I did a short triathlon. It was brutal. It was hard. I was dead last finisher, but I did it. I was just, ready to go. Once I got done, I was unleash me, let me go play again. So it was about a year later. Are you familiar with Meb Keflezighi?
No.
Okay, so Meb is a big deal American runner. He's won silver in the Olympics. He's won the Boston Marathon. He's won the New York City Marathon, and so forth. So he was on my podcast, The Fitzness Show, in May or June of 2021. And as soon as I got off the phone with him, or off the, it was a live video stream. So as soon as that was done, I got a call by a guy who owns a Boston Marathon running club. And he said, that was a great interview. And I said, thanks. I liked it too. And he said, I got a question for you. He said, we need someone to run the Boston Marathon for our favorite charity, and everyone wants you to do it. And I was like, I don't know. Actually, I gave him a little grief. I cursed him out. I said, don't you invite me to do that. I don't want to run a marathon right now. And he said, we really want you to do it. What do you think about it? And I said, okay, give me 24 hours. And then over the next 24 hours, I kind of tossed it around in my head. And I thought, well, do I really want to run a marathon? Not necessarily, but nothing will ever be hard again compared to cancer. I mean, what could be hard compared to chemo and so forth? So I called back and I said, okay, I'll do it. And I had about 4 or 5 months of training, and it was great. It was a very fun day. It was a big adventure. I ran the marathon with the guy who invited me to run, and we had so many laughs. We probably made a mockery of the Boston Marathon. I don't think you're supposed to have that much fun running a marathon, but I did it, and I was very proud of me. I think that's one of the niceties. You know, there are silver linings, and I'm fortunate I survived cancer. Not everybody does, but I hope even if you're someone who eventually is taken by cancer, I hope that you have found some silver linings along the way. And there's been quite a few times where I've said, thanks, cancer. I mean, I can't go back and undo it, right? So I might as well look at the bright side. But yeah, I was very proud of myself. And I don't wear pink ribbons. I don't do it. Cancer isn't the thing that I am. The ribbons make me feel like a victim, and I don't want to be that girl. There's a lot of people that wear like cancer warrior shirts or, whatever. It makes them feel strong. Those things make me feel less than. So I just don't wear it. It doesn't hang over me all the time. It affects me sometimes. Sometimes I look back and I'm a little bit shocked at what I went through. But mostly I use it to be brave, to make life better, to take more adventures, to help other people. And, the Boston Marathon was pretty cool. In fact, that weekend, it was still during all the COVID nonsense, and they made everybody get tested to make sure you didn't have COVID. And then they put this little bracelet, they locked it onto your arm, and it's been over 2 years now. It's still on my arm. I haven't taken it off because, with all my race announcing, those races that I work most weekends of the year are for everybody else. But that one was for me. So it was a great experience.
Mm. So you did, say, 4 to 5 months of training for the Boston Marathon?
Correct. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, most people that have never had chemo, I mean, I know you were a runner before then, but most people probably train for a year to do a marathon. Certainly from my experience, most people that I've trained to run a marathon, it takes about a year of training. How on earth did you do that in 4 to 5 months?
Yeah, I think most people could if you're of generically decent health, I think 4 months is probably a great time, but I'm scrappy. I'm very scrappy. I'm very determined. In fact, right before I agreed to do it, I said, okay, I'm going to go out. I'm going to see if I can do 10 miles today. I hadn't done 10 miles in 3 years or 2 years or whatever it was, but I just went out and I walked it. I just want to see, can I conquer 10 miles? And I could. So that was my starting point. I was real tired when I finished. But yeah, I was like, okay, 10 miles done. The next weekend I did 11. And anyways, I created a wise little training program. And trust me, I was not fast. I came in, I think, 15,000th place, something around there. But I had fun and I finished, and all's well that ends well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Leah was a 27-year-old who worked in insurance. Leah had never made much of an effort to eat healthily, and she loved chocolate. Before the age of 27, she ate whatever she wanted, and she managed to maintain a very healthy figure and a completely clear skin. So it was a big shock to her when she broke out for the first time in her life, just months away from her wedding. Leah was in a panic because she didn't want bad skin on her wedding day. After testing, it was found that Leah had a minor dysbiosis and a parasite infection that may or may not have been causing health issues, as sometimes parasites can be present without causing problems. I advised Leah on her nutrition and lifestyle and helped improve her gut microbiome. A few months in, there was some but not much improvement in Leah's skin, and she was in a state of panic. At that point, I tested for heavy metals, and it turned out that Leah had very high levels of mercury in her blood. When explaining the potential causes, I mentioned that fish, especially tuna, has mercury in it, and it turns out that Leah had eaten tuna for lunch every day for years. I advised Leah to use liposomal glutathione to help remove the mercury from her blood, and in a matter of weeks, Leah's skin was back to normal. If you would like to achieve the same kind of result as Leah, you can now follow a comprehensive step-by-step guide in my brand new book, Eliminating Adult Acne for Good, available now from all major online bookstores and via my website at www.bodycheck.co.uk/books. And what would you say is the most important thing for cancer patients and survivors to know?
Well, there's a couple things. Number one, your health matters. So whoever you are, if you have not been struck by illness or injury, know that it will come. Nobody gets out unscathed. So you should prepare your body to do battle today. Because if you are fit going into any sort of crisis, you will be far more likely to recover and rebound efficiently and effectively. So prioritize health now. Don't wait. But then know your mental game is vital. It is a very big deal. And so for me, I had a few things that really made my life better during and after treatment. Number one is perspective. Perspective is from day one that I was born, I've been a perspective girl. And I used to say, it's not cancer. So if I got in a car accident, it's not cancer. If I spilled wine on the carpet, it's not cancer. And then all of a sudden it was. And so was that my opportunity to have a big pity party and freak out? I definitely cried. I'm not a robot. I was human. I was stressed beyond belief. But what I thought about right away is the pediatric oncology unit here in my hometown of Gainesville, Florida. There's a little kids cancer center. And I thought, thank goodness I'm not a kid with cancer. Can you imagine being 4 with cancer? And God forbid it was my own kid with cancer. And so from that point on, I would say, well, I'm not a kid with cancer. It's not my kid with cancer. I'm so lucky to be a grown-up with cancer. So I did cry. I probably cried every single day. It was hard. I would go in my bathroom and I would just get the boo-hoos out and then I would get on with it. I would just carry on and my days would be better for that. So perspective is number one. Someone always has it worse. And if you focus on that, you'll see your situation is not as grim as it feels. Number two, I chose to have fun and be happy when I could. And so some people have more of a serious personality where they like to be dramatic or whatever. I don't. I'm a joy addict. Give me the opportunity, even if I'm in the middle of chemo or I'm in the middle of throwing up. And if something funny happens, I'm going to laugh. I don't need to bask in misery. And I think that's a real risk factor for health in general. Basking in misery is never a good idea. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be stressed. Find a way to get it out, get through it, have the conversation, and then go exercise or go play guitar or do the thing that, sets you back to even. So that positivity really does help. And then I chose to pursue my passions. And, many times people get diagnosed, their family says, oh my gosh, you've got cancer, hide out, wear a mask, duck under the covers. Okay, well, isolation is not a good thing for anybody. Isolation is what we do to our worst prisoners, right? You kill someone, you get isolated. You get cancer, you should not be isolated. You should be surrounded by love and things that make you happy and things that make you feel like life is worth living. And so for me, they were my kids. I decided before I even had one treatment that no matter what happened to me, if my kids had a sport, a ceremony, a show, I was going to be there. And I was. Even in the worst of times, I showed up and they made me a little bit happier, right? It's great to be with your kids, watching them succeed. And then the other thing I decided is I was not going to let cancer steal my career. It was going to steal my hair, many of my good feelings, and that happened. But it did not steal this thing that I worked so hard for decades, right? I have earned my rightful spot on those stages, and I wasn't going to let cancer steal that. So I boarded over 30 planes out of Gainesville, Florida to Los Angeles and New York and all sorts of different states around the country. And I made it happen. And flying while violently ill is not cool. It's not a great time, but the destination was always worth it. And so I'd arrive at my destination. Quite often I'd get IV fluids that my race director had arranged for me. I would sleep on the hotel bathroom floors because apparently that's where you sleep to stop the world from spinning. And then I'd wake up and at 5 a.m., I'd drag my body over to the start line. And that's where the miracles happened. That was where all of the magic showed up for me as I went from this violently ill, sick, tired, stressed person to full force Fitz Koehler. I stepped on those stages and I was surrounded by thousands of incredible people serving these extraordinary events, and everything worked. I wasn't tired. I wasn't suffering. I wasn't sick. I was laser focused on them. I was fueled with adrenaline, and I got to be me. And if I had taken the advice of those who love me and I'd stayed home, if the Big Sur Marathon was taking place and I was at home, all I would do was cry. All I would do is grieve, and sadness is not helpful to anybody. And so I pursued those passions, and they truly benefited me. They gave me days where I felt like a normal, wonderful person again. And if I had not pursued those passions, all I would have been was sick. And so whoever you are, whatever's going on in your life, if your house burns down, okay, get your family, be lucky you got your family out, go walk around the block and cry over your house. And then, I don't know, go to the park and play soccer because you love soccer or football so much, right? Right. Do something that makes you better, that fuels your spirit. And if you're stuck in the hospital, which many of us are, all right, you can't play football, watch a match on TV or read a book about football or paint a picture. I mean, there's stuff that you can do and you should do, or, you just end up being sick. And that's not so good.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned football because last year, well, this is a coincidence to a degree. Last year, a colleague of mine contacted me. This was in June. And he said, a school friend of mine has got cancer. He's going for treatment in Germany. It was going to cost £250,000 for the treatment because the medical establishment in this country said, we can't help you. And he said, I'm going to organise a five-a-side football tournament, and I'm looking for people to volunteer to come and play and maybe get a team together. And I haven't played for 32 years, but I loved football. And I got a team together. I had someone from Scotland, someone from Wales, so not even from England. My nephew, who was semi-professional, got him and one of his ex-teammates to come along. And we got a team together and we played in the tournament, and it was amazing that I'd forgotten how much I loved playing football. And it was like, I didn't even play that much because I actually injured myself practicing before the event.
Okay.
And I could only play for a short period of time, but even that short period of time was like, wow, I've forgotten how much joy I get from playing football. I need to do more of that. Now, sadly, the guy passed away who we did the event for. But for me, that really said, I play a lot of tennis these days, and I have done for 20 years, but it just made me realize that, seeking joy is just so, so important. And it was interesting that you brought that up, the things that you've mentioned so far that helped you recover: exercise, nutrition, but really following your joy. Yeah. Following things that you're passionate about, that you love to do. And that is so, so important when it comes to health, and something that I think often gets missed. So my teacher that I mentioned to you before we started recording, Paul Check, he says that you need 4 doctors to keep you healthy, and they live inside you. And the first doctor is Dr. Happiness. You've also got Dr. Diet, Dr. Quiet, and Dr. Movement. But the thing that comes first is Dr. Happiness. You've got to do things in life that make you happy.
I completely agree. And, what's interesting is I was born this way. I'm a joy addict. I love being happy. My mom says, you were conceived in Disney World. Of course you're happy, which I think, don't tell me that, Mom. But I'm naturally happy. But this is also an acquired skill. It's a choice. And whether you've got cancer or you don't have cancer, you should be controlling the things that you can. Life is short. Life is sweet. And it's interesting to me how many times where people, as children, we're always focused on kids having fun and engagement. And then as soon as school goes away, people give up fun, they give up engagement. And I just don't think that's a quality way to live. I'm so fortunate that my career is so much fun. So if I'm working, I'm having fun. I love what I do. But I've learned, I just a few months ago started playing guitar for the very first time. I signed my son up, and then I thought, you know what? I've always wanted to do that. I should do that. And so now I have a guitar. I'm not very good, but I'm also not terribly bad. I've got some skills, and it's just this thing. Even if I do it for 20 minutes a day, it fills me up with joy. I was invited to do a Dancing with the Stars competition. And so I started rehearsing for that a few months ago, and I'm ballroom dancing. I'm doing the jive. I got to choose my dance, and I decided whatever's the rowdiest, most fun dance, and that's the jive. And as soon as I started training, I thought, I wish my mom would have signed me up to do this when I was a kid. I've been doing this my whole life, and now I'm committed to it. It makes me that happy. When I'm dancing, I have this, we call it the shit-eating grin, but I look like a total happy weirdo out on the dance floor. But everybody should have that. You don't have to be wealthy. You don't have to be any particular type of person to do something that fills you with joy, something that matters to you. And parents are awful. Parents spend all of their time going, we got to do it for the kids. And they spend zero time role modeling being joyful themselves. If you are a mom or a dad and you use your kids as an excuse not to exercise, not okay. They should see you exercising. They should know that that's the end game. They're going to be grown-ups who exercise with their family. They should see you eating healthy food. They should also see you having fun. They should know that mom has this cool hobby and dad has this really cool hobby. I like to fish with my dad and I like to do arts and crafts with my mom or vice versa. So I really want to encourage everybody to prioritize yourself. It's not selfish. You will be a better spouse, a better parent, a better lover, a better professional if you have fueled your own spirit and done things to keep you happy. It obliterates that stress, removes so much toxicity from your life. I'm going to stop beating that dead horse already, but yeah, do something for you. For crying out loud. Don't wait for cancer to start prioritizing health and happiness.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting as well. I'm not sure I've got the numbers correct, but if you look at children, they generally laugh about 400 times a day, and adults laugh about 4 times a day.
Lame. So lame.
Right. So it was interesting. About this time last year, I think, I started working with a lady that was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she'd just been through chemo. And one of the things I suggested she does is laugh every day. Yeah. And then when we discussed, okay, so how are you going to make sure you laugh every day? And I said, what kind of things make you laugh? And then in the end, she set up a WhatsApp group with her family. And if they'd see something funny online, they would put it in the WhatsApp group. So then the whole family were actually joining in every day. They were getting these like comedy sketches and things like that was making them not just chuckle, laugh out loud, belly laughter. And, and if I would see something on YouTube, I would send it to her to make her laugh. And, I think that's really important when it comes to health. And I don't think people think of exercise and nutrition, but they don't think of, things that make them happy and things that make them laugh, because that is some of the best medicine you'll ever get.
Oh, that. And then my other add-on onto that is obviously quality sleep. I love sleep. I'm a big sleeper. I'm
absolutely.
A proud sleeper. But then I also say you got to remove the cranky people. Get rid of those peoples that do nothing, that suck, that they just suck your energy. They add nothing positive. Even if that person is a blood relative, if somebody is disrespectful to you or brings nothing but misery, mute them, block them on your phone. Don't plan to be with them. In fact, I have a family member that is a very close family member that I just decided no more. I'm cordial with her on family occasions, but I do not let her abuse me anymore. She was a horrible, horrible piece of my life and just mean-spirited, and my life's better without her. Again, I wish her well, but I'm not going to allow her to stick around and berate me and make my life miserable. So I encourage everybody to do the same, have some high standards. And, the follow up, if you're a parent and you let whoever it is in your life abuse you, no, your kids are going to allow people to be abusive to them too. So really stand up for yourself, be your own best advocate.
Absolutely. Holly was a 28-year-old personal trainer suffering from acne when she first came to see me. Holly had terrible breakouts and felt embarrassed and like a fraud when training her clients, as she didn't think she was the perfect example of what it meant to be healthy. Even though she was a personal trainer and was trained in nutrition, she didn't realize the food that she ate caused her acne and affected her overall health. Following a few lab tests, it was discovered that Holly had fungal and parasite infections, as well as food sensitivities to gluten, egg, and soy. Holly changed her diet as advised, followed her metabolic typing diet, eliminated sensitive foods, and followed a plan to reduce her fungal and parasite infections to help heal her gut. The program worked a treat for Holly, and she was completely spot-free relatively quickly once the program was in full flow. She now has much more confidence, especially at work, enjoys her social life, and no longer has to wear makeup to go out of the house, which she really loves. If you would like to achieve the same kind of result as Holly, you can now follow a comprehensive step-by-step guide in my brand new book, Eliminating Adult Acne for Good, available now from all major online bookstores and via my website at www.bodycheck.co.uk/books. So you mentioned earlier how important exercise was for you, in your recovery. But how does exercise affect your chances of survival from cancer?
Well, I can start by saying that if you are unfit, your immune system likely isn't as strong. It's interesting when someone gets a cold, they instantly say, I need to get some vitamin C to fight off this cold. All right. Let's talk about if you've got something dastardly like cancer. So having a strong, powerful immune system is a very big deal, especially when someone is injecting you with needles all the time, penetrating your skin. Every time you get a needle, you're at risk for infection. Also, you become at risk. Well, you don't become at risk for really, you lose stamina, strength, flexibility, mobility, balance. All these drugs can affect your mind and the way your body works. And so, I can't think of anything worse than cancer in a broken hip, cancer in a fractured skull because you fell, because you were unfit. So it really does help you persevere through some really tough experiences. And then depending on what kind of surgery you have, if you've had some sort of bowel resection, I hope you're strong. I hope you're able to stand up straight and get back to mobility exercises and so forth. It just really, there's a lot to recover from. So exercise is necessary, and nutrition, the same. Again, going back to that immune system, it's very important that you have an immune system that's helping you, not hurting you. And then, of course, protein to help you rebuild muscle if you're losing it. It's just all very necessary. Fiber to keep your digestive system going. Mine was an overly active digestive system, but sometimes people get a stopped up digestive system. And if you're not eating fruits and vegetables and drinking water, that can become a real problem. So it's an endless cycle of either help yourself or hurt yourself. And I'm all about helping yourself.
And what motivated you to write the Cancer Comeback series?
Yeah, so my Noisy Cancer Comeback, this one's the memoir. It's just my story from diagnosis to my final day of treatment, and all the gory details are in there. So what I found is people weren't talking about all the wacky stuff that goes on. I knew that I might feel sick and tired and that I would be bald, but I didn't know that my fingernails might rip off or that my eyes would change colors. And so when weird stuff kept happening to me, I kept thinking, how come no one is talking about this? And then all of these wild experiences started happening because I was on the road with cancer. And so some of it was just really funny. I didn't tell all the truth about my situation while I was going through it because I didn't want pity. But I figured I could put it in a book and people can't pity me in reverse. So if they read about it after the fact, they can learn something, they can get some motivation, some inspiration, and then they can laugh about it without feeling pity for me. So that's where this book came from. And then this one, which I think is the most important book in the series, Your Healthy Cancer Comeback, Sick to Strong. This one was born because I hit rock bottom. It was about the same few days where my mom said, "You look like you're in Auschwitz." And I went to the gym, and it was right after my surgery. I finally was released to go back and start doing regular lifting and so forth. And I sat down on a machine and I put in the pin where my weight used to be, and I pushed and nothing happened. I had to lower the pin and lower the pin. And what I found is that I lost 80% of my strength. Yikes. I had lost 14 pounds, which on my already lean body, that was pretty rough. Lost 80% of my strength, and I'm a big statistics girl, so that was alarming. And what I thought was, at that moment, I thought, well, this is probably the point where most people would burst into tears, run out to their car and go home and give up. Because how much can you lose, right? But instead, I thought, well, I know exactly how to craft this comeback. I know exactly how to rebuild my body, my strength, my stamina, my flexibility, my balance. So I was sitting on that machine, really upset by the number, but super cocky about my comeback. And then I thought about my peers, about the millions of cancer patients and survivors worldwide who had been, harmed, who have been obliterated by their disease, and they had no idea how to rebuild your body. How do you exercise during chemo and radiation? And so I knew. So I decided to take my fitness expertise and my cancer experience and write the guidebook. And nobody else had. I looked on Amazon, and there was one really horrible book written by a nurse that was completely unhelpful. And so this is the one. This is the only one who's giving this kind of information, and it's killing it worldwide. In fact, my once it went on sale, it had huge sales in Germany and France. We've got a decent amount in England and of course in the States, but I love seeing the world light up with book sales. That makes me very happy. And then this is the Healthy Cancer Comeback Journal. Journaling is proven to be a cathartic way to manage your feelings, and beyond just your feelings, there's some data you want to keep track of. So the book is full colored because I wanted it to be filled with joy. There's no sad pictures, no ribbons. It's a place to document your details, your treatment plans, a place to reference your family, your friends, your feelings, and then some sort of fun stuff, because there's a lot of funny stuff during cancer care. Nobody wants to talk about it, but I'm talking about it. And I never wore a wig, so I always was compared to various celebrities. And so one of the prompts in the journal is, what celebrity do you look like bald? And for me, my most frequent comment was crazy Britney Spears. So I look like crazy Britney Spears when I'm bald. So I also got Grace Jones, Sinead O'Connor, the bald chick from Star Trek. I got a whole bunch of different comparisons, but yeah, crazy Britney Spears for me. So hopefully the journal is a place for not only people to document all of their cancer details, but the back third of the book is where they can document their journey from sick to strong. It's exercise, nutrition, sleep, hydration, and then strawberry moments, which are your best moments each day. And hopefully people get in the habit of writing down the wonderful experiences they have, even with cancer.
And I know this might sound like a stupid question, but is there a particular audience that the books are aimed at?
Yeah, so these two, the Comeback Journal and Your Healthy Cancer Comeback, for cancer patients and survivors. I would say caregivers could probably use them too. Mm-hmm. This book is actually really wildly popular in the running community. So they're interested in me. It's the collision of cancer and race announcing and running. So I don't know. I've had people of all types, with and without cancer, read my Noisy Cancer Comeback and give it great reviews. So hopefully it's a little bit of entertainment and information for everybody.
And would you say it's for men and women?
Yeah. So I specifically didn't use the word breast in any of my titles because with cancer, our experience, there's so many communal experiences. I went through the same thing that my buddy with colon cancer, my friend with brain cancer has. So, the focus is really on the commonalities, of course. In my noisy cancer comeback, you'll hear specifically about my breast cancer, but the other books are for any type of cancer patient with any type of cancer at the beginning or end of their treatment. It doesn't really matter. They're beneficial to anyone.
Mm. And what would be your top 3 tips for people that have maybe just been diagnosed with cancer?
Okay, so control what you can, when you can. Make sure exercise and nutrition are a high priority for you. You don't have to do it at the same level you used to do. You just have to do what you can today. And today, if you're in the hospital and the best thing you can do is a lap around the hall, okay, do that. If it's stand up, sit down out of your wheelchair, great, do that. If you're strong enough to go do a CrossFit class, great, do it. Because if you look at the evidence, exercise and nutrition are very, very powerful, can really increase your chances of survival and decrease chances of recurrence. So number one, that you gotta harp on perspective and continue to pursue your passions. And, life is worth living, and nothing really brings that into clearer vision than when someone looks at you and says, I'm so sorry you have cancer. Because at that point, all you want is your health. You're willing to give up the stuff, the boat, the fancy car, whatever things you have, you're willing to give it all up. I mean, when I was, this office is very interesting. When I was sick, I'd be sitting here at this chair and I'd look around and I'd think about my stuff and I'd say, golly, if I died from this, all of this stuff is just garbage. It's just garbage. Everything in your life becomes garbage if you die. So stop focusing on that stuff. Put a little more effort into your body and your mind. And if you do have a strong body and you do have a strong mind, you will be unstoppable.
Absolutely. So before you were diagnosed, you were already very fit, very healthy. You were eating well. What has been the main change in you, would you say, post treatment?
Good question. So I'm almost back. I mean, I'm in a great place. I'm super healthy. I'm a little lighter than I was. I've had a hard time packing on weight. So I'm still, I think, 6 pounds lighter than I was pre-cancer, but it's fine. I'm at a healthy weight. I've got some scars. I'm definitely dinged up. My weird thing that maintains is that when my very first chemo, which was a 9-hour chemo day, I sit in the chair, pumping me full of drugs. I take a nap. I wake up to go to the bathroom, and my quads felt like they had just climbed Mount Everest. My quads just were burning. It was so weird. And I thought, well, I didn't do anything to earn this. And then those quads stayed sore like that for the entire 6 months of the mean chemo. Just every day, it felt like I climbed Mount Everest, which is super weird. Again, one of those side effects nobody tells you about. And then what I found post-treatment is my quads are still weaker than the rest of me. They're still a problem. And boy, do I know how to train quads. I've been doing all the lunges and all the squats and all the steps and the stadiums and the things. And I still have yet to be able to rebuild the power in my quads that I used to have. So I actually have an oncology follow-up in a few weeks, and I'm going to ask him if that's a normal thing. I don't really understand it. So that's weird for me, but I'm still doing all the things that I like to do. I do them with weaker quads.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, listening to what you were saying, I got the impression that the main difference between pre-cancer and post-cancer is your perspective on life.
You know what? I had this perspective before, but boy, is it reinforced. It's interesting when you come to, when you have a life-altering diagnosis, so many people hit that fork in the road and they go, oh, I've been doing the wrong thing. I need to do this instead. So cancer, I hit that fork in the road, man. I just doubled down. It became crystal clear that I was with the right people doing the right thing. I just wanted to do more of it. And it made all of those instincts of mine pronounced, right? So I did have this perspective before, but it's just so much stronger now. So It's ridiculous how happy I am. I am so flipping happy, and I don't know what it's going to take to make me sad, but I hope I never find out, because I can brush off a lot of I can go through almost anything. And thanks, cancer, right?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I certainly believe everything happens for a reason.
Perhaps.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm certainly, I'm inclined to make lemonade.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me as a practitioner, the important thing when I'm working with someone is to find the root cause.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, you were doing a lot of things really well before.
Yeah.
Have you any idea what the cause of your cancer might have been?
So it's interesting. I've talked with my doctor about it, and, there really isn't anything to pinpoint. Now, I can go back to college where I drank heavily, perhaps. I stopped eating beef, and really most animals and about college age as well. But they say that 1 in 8 women in North America are diagnosed with breast cancer. 1 in 40 women in Asia are diagnosed. So I believe it's environmental. I believe it's nutritional. I'm not sure what I specifically have done, because I've been for a very long time living without alcohol and definitely without meat and these carcinogens. But I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever know. I just know that I'm going to continue doing my best and feel good about that.
Mm. Yeah, because again, one of the things that often is discussed with breast cancer is estrogen dominance as well.
Right.
And again, it's interesting that the episode that's actually live at the moment, so it's episode 72, with Dr. David Billstrom, he actually spoke a little bit about estrogen dominance and things that can cause estrogen dominance, which is generally a lack of progesterone. It's the balance between estrogen and progesterone. And, things like stress and an altered gut microbiome are just 2 of the things that can cause estrogen dominance. And then estrogen dominance can cause lots of issues as well, not just breast cancer. But yeah, alcohol is obviously another one that could potentially increase the likelihood of that as well. So interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
interesting.
There's a whole bunch of things. It's interesting how many people know that red meat is a class 1 carcinogen next to cigarettes.
Well, I'm not sure that's true. I'm not sure.
It is true.
I'm not sure that red meat
World Health Organization. It is.
Well, that's a corrupt organization, though. That's a corrupt organization.
Okay.
They're a criminal organization.
Okay. The cancer community at large has evidence. I mean, I don't think these scientists are just
you might be
making
talking
stuff
about
up.
the medical community might say that, but I would say my ancestors have eaten red meat for tens of thousands of years.
And none of them
red
have
meat
had
caused
cancer.
I'm talking about for thousands of years. If red meat caused cancer, I wouldn't be here. I would never have got here.
Well, that's not true, because not everybody, like some people smoke 2 packs a day and they don't get lung cancer. So it's not everybody, but it is a carcinogen, just like the sun is, overexposure to the sun. And who says who can handle it and who can't? But yeah, I don't think enough people know that it's beef, pork, and lamb are carcinogenic, and there is no safe amount. So what they're saying is that we can't tell you that 12 ounces per week is fine. 12 ounces per week may cause colon cancer for someone, and 12 ounces or 40 ounces a week may not cause it with someone else. But I think it's just disingenuous to ignore that research and pretend it's not accurate just because maybe, I mean, think about your great-great-great-grandfather. He dropped dead at 43. Nobody knew why, because they didn't know how to diagnose colon cancer. So you just can't go back and I don't know. I'm sure I have a bunch of old dead Irish people that are my relatives that are dead from all sorts of different things I'm unaware of, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I guess the point is, the only thing, like if you come from, like, for instance, the UK, so most of my ancestors came from the UK, all they ate was red meat, pretty much, right?
Right, mine too.
So if it caused cancer, we wouldn't have survived.
So I think you're missing the point is, and I Irish, mostly Irish and Scottish ancestors. Lots of potatoes, right? Lots of potatoes too. So
No, it's not. Potatoes not native to Europe.
Okay, for Ireland, there's lots of potatoes over there.
It's not. No, it's a South American food. It might have been imported in the last few hundred years, but it's not native to that part of the world.
Okay. We're reading different books here, but anywho, just because you have beef doesn't mean you're definitely going to get cancer. Just because you drink alcohol doesn't mean you're definitely going to get cancer or have sun exposure. But there are endless studies that show that red meat is a carcinogen, and for some people, it will result in digestive cancer.
Yeah, I think that's respective studies that have looked back. So people fill in questionnaires and say, "What do you eat?" But what they don't often look at is what did you eat with that. So what do people often eat with beef? They often eat like a bun, right, in a burger. So it's difficult to say that it was definitely red meat when you're eating other things with it. There's lots of confounding factors that I think makes that a little bit difficult to say that's definitely the case.
Well, I'm not saying it's definitely the case for each person, but if you have cigarettes, for example, you are more likely to be diagnosed with oral and lung cancers. And red meat consumption makes you more likely to have certain types of cancers. It doesn't mean everybody who eats red meat is going to have cancer, but it is a carcinogen. The same people are, let's say, even though Black people do get melanoma, maybe I'm more susceptible to melanoma because I don't have as much natural resistance to the sun. And a Black person might get the same amount of sun without getting melanoma. So some people might have digestive systems that can handle a carcinogen like red meat where others can't. But to ignore the fact that it's a verified carcinogen is dangerous. I mean, I think people need to go look. And that research, it's real. It's there. Same thing with cigarettes, same thing with sun, same thing with processed meats. They are carcinogenic. And you take your life in your own hands when you make poor eating choices. It's up to you. I mean, we don't want to control anybody. They get to choose how little or much they have, but they should know the truth up front and then make educated decisions.
Yeah, I think the other thing we need to be careful of when looking at studies like that is the quality of the meat as well. So
Perhaps.
I think the studies you're talking about don't differentiate between fully grass-fed organic, so let's say beef, compared to the animals that are tortured in cages and fed terrible feed, and they're pumped with antibiotics and hormones. I'd completely agree that those would potentially cause cancer.
So it's interesting. One of my friends, Phil Decker, he's a stage 4 colon cancer survivor. He's living with it now. He's been diagnosed about a year and a half, 2 years. He's been through all sorts of treatment. He's run multiple marathons during treatment. Great guy. And so Phil and I had the conversation. We were talking about nutrition. He said, I did not know that red meats and processed meats were carcinogenic. And I said, well, they are. And then he said, well, I'm never going to eat any again. I wish I had known before. I said, I hear ya. And that's actually one of the reasons my kids have never had any sort of red meat. They're 18 and 20. They've never had a bite of red meat because of the carcinogenic effects. It's not because of their weight. I'm a vegetarian because I love animals, but I don't inflict that on them. They eat chicken. Anywho, Phil went back and he told me one day, he said, oh, well, I switched to hormone-free red meat. I said, Phil, I think you should do some research because I believe that's still classified as a carcinogen. He's like, let me go look. And he went and it is red meat, even hormone-free, cage-free red meat is still carcinogenic. I'm not making this stuff up. I just read the studies, but there are some pretty brilliant people doing research. And, I don't think it's fair to say, well, they're trying to keep you sick because they make more money. We know that one person who came up with the actual cure for cancer, the pill that prevents it or cures it, that person is 20 times richer than Elon Musk. That person has everything in the world. If you get to be that one lucky person that actually does cure cancer, well, then the world is your oyster to suggest that science is avoiding the cure because they want to keep you sick. No, those people want your cash. And they would do anything to come up with those cures. So I believe in many of our scientists, and they have rules about they have procedural rules to help us navigate whether their information is accurate or false. And there's a lot of evidence against red meat and alcohol and cigarettes and excessive sun. And people are still going to go out in the sun in Florida and not wear sunscreen and pay the price one day. Or maybe they won't. It's up to them. But it's just, it's important to have that information up front.
Awesome. So Fitz, where can people find you online?
Yeah, so I am at Fitzness everywhere. It's F as in Frank, I-T, Z as in zebra, N-E-S-S. That word fitness with a big Z in the middle, fitzness.com. Not only are my books on sale there, but you can contact me. And I have tons of free resources, articles, and workout videos to help you accomplish all of your fitness goals. I'm also at Fitzness on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And if you want to follow, I promise great quality content in return. But what I prefer is that you follow and then say, hello, I heard you on Lee's podcast. I would like to connect because I'd much rather have friends than followers.
Awesome. Fitz, thank you so much. It's been a really interesting conversation. I think you're, a real inspiration, and hopefully your success continues.
Yeah, thank you, Lee. It was really nice getting to meet with you. And I do actually love having a friendly debate. So this has been great. Thank you for making my morning.
Awesome. Great stuff. So that's all from Fitz and me for this week. But don't forget, you can join me same time, same place next week on the Radical Health Rebel podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to give the show a rating and a review, and I'll see you next time.